The dawn that followed was unlike any other seen on Velian Prime in many months. For the first time, the smoke clouds parted, and a thin beam of sunlight reached the ruins below. To the tired eyes of the Velian people, that light felt almost unreal. A reminder that even after the darkest night, morning still came. Inside the human command ship TSS Aurora, Captain Alara Dane stood quietly by the wide observation window. The planet looked fragile from orbit, its cities broken, its oceans dim. But beneath that fragile surface, something new was growing. "Status report," she said, turning to her crew. Her second officer, Lieutenant Cole Armin, replied. "Resistance groups across the northern and eastern sectors have reconnected. They've started reactivating old planetary defenses under our guidance." "The people are ready, ma'am," Alara nodded. "Good. Then it's time to begin." The Plan Alara's plan wasn't about brute strength. She knew that against the Dravari Dominion, humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but the Terran way was never about size. It was about strategy. Her idea was simple but daring. The Dominion fleet relied heavily on its central control hub, a massive orbital relay that coordinated communication between ships and ground units. If that hub went down, the entire network would fall into confusion. Alara looked at the holographic projection floating in front of her. A bright red sphere marked the enemy relay station orbiting on the far side of Velian Prime. "If we disable their relay," she explained, "they'll lose control of their troops for several hours. That window will give the Velians enough time to retake the capital and restore their own defense grid." Cole frowned. "It's a good plan, Captain. But we'll have to fly through 3 Dominion patrol zones to reach it." "Yes," Alara replied with a calm smile. "That's why we'll go in quiet." Quiet thunder. As night fell again over Velian Prime, the TSS Aurora drifted into the planet's shadow. Its engines dimmed, running on silent thrusters. From the outside, it looked like a piece of drifting metal debris, invisible to most scanners. Inside the ship, the human soldiers prepared for the mission. Their faces showed focus, not fear. They moved with practiced discipline, checking gear, calibrating drones, and syncing communication systems. Alara walked among them, her steps steady. "Remember," she said softly, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every world that believes small voices don't matter against big powers. Let's show them what courage really looks like." The soldiers nodded firmly. They weren't here for glory. They were here to make a difference. Meanwhile, on the surface in the underground shelter, Leora Miles worked tirelessly with her team. They were in direct contact with Alara's ship, providing ground data and updating the terrain maps. "Energy readings from the capital are stabilizing," Karen reported. "The old defense turrets might still work if we reroute the power correctly." Leora smiled faintly. "Then let's wake them up. The humans are giving us a chance. We must not waste it." She looked up at the cracked ceiling above. Somewhere beyond it, humans were risking their lives for a planet that wasn't even theirs. That thought filled her with quiet strength. The Dominion responds in orbit above the planet. Commander Taranvel paced across the bridge of his command ship, the Obsidian Fang. His golden eyes narrowed as he reviewed the latest reports. "Strange activity in the lower atmosphere," his officer said. "Several of our drones have stopped transmitting." "Ground units report interference," Taran frowned. "Interference again?" "Increased surveillance in all sectors. I want to know who's responsible." "Yes, Commander." Another officer spoke. "There's also movement in the northern hemisphere. It appears the Valians are reorganizing. But how? Their communication systems were destroyed." Taran turned sharply toward the window, staring into the stars. "Humans," he muttered. "It has to be them." He'd read about them long ago. Stories of their stubborn nature, their creativity, and their refusal to surrender even when facing extinction. He had dismissed those tales as exaggerations. But now he began to wonder. "Deploy the perimeter fleet," Taran ordered. "If the Terrans think they can hide, they're mistaken." The operation begins. The Aurora reached the far side of the planet. In the distance, the Dominion relay station floated like a dark metal ring, its lights blinking rhythmically. Dozens of enemy ships guarded it, but their patrols were predictable, following perfect machine-like patterns. Alara studied them for a long moment. "They think like machines," she said softly. "Let's think like humans." She gave the signal. The ship's small stealth drones separated silently, drifting into space. Each drone carried a cluster of signal emitters designed to mimic larger ships. As they spread out, Dominion sensors began to register false readings, dozens of phantom ships appearing across their radar. Inside the Obsidian Fang, alarms blared. Multiple contacts detected. An officer shouted, "Sector 12 to 19. Unidentified ships approaching." "What?" Terran demanded. "That's impossible." "No warp signatures detected." "They just appeared, Commander." Terran's eyes darkened. "Find them." But by the time the Dominion fleet moved to respond, the real Terran ship had already slipped past their lines, heading straight for the relay. Inside the storm, the Aurora approached the massive Dominion hub quietly. Blue lightning flickered along its surface as energy pulsed through the structure. Cole glanced at his captain. "Ma'am, we're within range. If we disable that thing, they'll know exactly where we are." Ilara nodded. "Then we'll just have to be faster." She turned to her pilot. "Launch the pulse charges." Small metallic capsules shot out from the ship's lower bay, attaching themselves to the hub's outer ring. A soft vibration filled the cockpit as the ship's systems linked to the devices. "Ready," said the engineer. "Detonation in 3 and 2. "Wait," Ilara said suddenly. "Adjust the timing sequence. We want a ripple effect, not a single blast. It'll confuse their diagnostics." Cole blinked. "You're going to make it look like a power surge?" Ilara smiled slightly. "Exactly." The countdown restarted. This time when the charges went off, they didn't explode outward. Instead, a wave of electromagnetic interference rippled across the hub's surface, shorting circuits and overloading communication links. Across the Dominion network, lights flickered. Systems went offline. Confusion spread like wildfire. The ground awakens on the planet below. The sudden disruption was like a signal. All Dominion frequencies just dropped. Karen shouted in excitement. "Their coordination's broken." Leora grinned. "Then it's time. Send the activation codes." One by one, the ancient Velian defense turrets came to life. Their lights glowed blue once more as power surged through long-dead circuits. Shield generators hummed across the capital city, forming shimmering domes of protection. Citizens peeked from shelters, watching in awe as the sky brightened. For the first time, the enemy's drones retreated, confused and uncoordinated. The people began to cheer. Human strategy. Meanwhile, the Aurora was not safe. Dominion ships quickly noticed the interference source. Beams of light flashed in the distance as patrol vessels moved in. Cole looked nervous. "They found us!" Ilara stayed calm. "Activate decoy program Beta 7. Make them chase ghosts." Within seconds, dozens of fake signals appeared again, scattering in all directions. The Dominion ships broke formation to pursue them, wasting precious time. "Captain, the relay is going into full shutdown," said the engineer. "Their network's collapsing." "Good, that's our cue to leave." Ilara turned her ship sharply, diving toward the planet's atmosphere. The ship's hull glowed faintly as it entered the clouds, disappearing from enemy sight. Behind them, the relay hub flickered, then went completely dark. Commander Terran's dilemma back aboard the Obsidian Fang. Taranvel stared at the darkened relay display. His officers rushed about trying to restore communication, but nothing worked. "Total network failure, Commander," one officer reported. "We've lost contact with half the fleet." Terran clenched his jaw. "How long until we recover?" "Unknown. Hours, maybe longer." He looked out the window again, his thoughts uneasy. "They did this with one ship," he murmured. "Just one." He had underestimated them, the humans with their strange courage and cleverness. And now the balance was shifting. The rise of Velian in the capital city, the once broken resistance now stood united. With guidance from Ilara's team, they redirected power grids, restored communication towers, and reconnected settlements. Leora watched the holographic map in amazement as blue dots spread across the planet, each one a sign of life, of people standing up again. She spoke into her communicator. "Captain Dane, the defense grid is fully online. The people are ready." Ilara's voice came through, calm and steady. "Excellent work, Leora. Now it's their turn to lead. We've done what we came for. Will you leave now?" Leora asked quietly. "Not yet," Ilara said. "We'll stay until they can stand on their own." The turning tide as the Dominion struggled to reorganize, the Velian defense grid began pushing them back. With their control network disabled, the enemy ships lost coordination. The once silent cities glowed again with power. Old orbital cannons reactivated, firing defensive bursts that forced the Dominion to retreat. From orbit, Ilara watched as the tide of battle shifted, not because of destruction but because of unity. "See that?" she said softly to Cole. "That's what happens when people remember who they are." Cole smiled. "You gave them hope, ma'am." The skies above Velian Prime were no longer blue. Thick layers of smoke and dust covered the horizon, turning the once bright world into a dim, lifeless shade of gray. The great city of Tessara, known for its tall glass towers and peaceful gardens, now stood in silence. What was once a place of music and laughter had turned into a shadow of fear and uncertainty. Everywhere, people whispered the same word: "It's over." For months, the Velian people had fought to protect their planet from the invading alien fleet known as the Dravari Dominion. The Dominion's ships were massive, shaped like dark blades that cut through the sky. They had technology far superior to Velian's defenses. Their energy shields could block every missile, and their drones could track every movement on the ground. At first, the Velians had tried to fight back with courage and unity. They had scientists, engineers, and pilots who worked tirelessly to build new defenses. But with each passing week, the attacks grew stronger. Cities fell one after another. Food supplies ran low. Communication systems broke down. Now even the bravest hearts began to lose hope. The scientist and the signal inside an underground research facility, Leora Miles sat beside a flickering control screen. She was one of the last scientists still working for the Velian Defense Council. Her eyes were tired and her uniform was covered in dust. Around her, the walls shook softly as distant explosions echoed above the ground. "Power's dropping again," said Karen, her assistant checking the energy monitors. "I know," Leora replied, her voice calm but heavy. "We'll lose the main grid soon." She leaned closer to the screen, watching lines of code scroll by. They were trying to send a message, not just across their planet, but across the stars. It was a desperate call for help. The Velians had sent hundreds of distress signals over the past few weeks, but none had been answered. The galaxy had gone silent. Still, Leora refused to stop. "Someone out there will hear us," she whispered. Karen gave a weak smile. "No one's coming, Leora. The Dominion controls every relay station in this sector. Even if they receive it, they'll never reach us in time." Leora didn't reply. Her fingers kept moving across the screen, adjusting frequencies and signal strength. Deep down, she knew Karen might be right. But giving up wasn't an option. Suddenly, one of the monitors flickered. A faint green light appeared. "Wait," Leora said quickly. "There's a bounce back on the long-range frequency." "That's impossible." Karen's eyes widened. "You mean someone heard us?" "I'm not sure," Leora said, her heartbeat quickening. "It could be interference." From before she could finish, the power cut out completely. The screens went dark. The two stood in silence for a moment, listening to the hum of backup lights switching on. Leora sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Even if someone heard us," she said softly, "they'd have to cross half the galaxy. No one would risk that for us." But deep in her heart, she hoped she was wrong. A planet on the edge above the planet, the Dravari fleet drifted like a swarm of black shadows. Their ships formed a blockade around Velian Prime, ensuring that no one could escape or enter. Inside the command vessel Obsidian Fang, Commander Terran Vel stood by the viewing window, his golden eyes scanning the burning cities below. "Resistance is minimal now," reported one of his officers. "Our ground patrols have taken the Western Hemisphere. The remaining population centers are surrendering." Terran nodded slowly. "As expected. Continue occupation procedures. No unnecessary destruction. We need their resources intact." He turned to another officer. "Any sign of outside interference?" "None, Commander. The surrounding systems remain quiet. The local trade routes are under our control." Terran smiled faintly. "Good. The Velians were an ambitious race. But they lacked one thing: understanding of true power. This will serve as an example to the others." He looked out again, admiring the quiet planet below. Yet somewhere deep inside, a strange feeling stirred. Something he couldn't quite explain. A sense that the calm would not last. Hope in the darkness. 3 days later, the Velian Council met in a hidden shelter beneath the capital city. Only a handful of leaders remained. The atmosphere was heavy with despair. "We cannot hold them back any longer," said Councillor Thean, his voice trembling. "Our forces are scattered. Our cities are gone. We must surrender before more lives are lost. Surrender? Replied another leader bitterly. Do you think the Dominion will show mercy? They'll take everything we have and leave us broken. Leora stood quietly at the edge of the room, clutching a small data chip. She waited until the voices calmed before speaking. I might have something, she said softly. Before the power failed, we received a faint signal from beyond the outer rim. It wasn't Drivari. The frequency pattern was different, human. The room went silent. Humans? Thien frowned. That's impossible. The human territories are too far. They wouldn't even know what's happening here. I know, Leora said, but the signal was real. It could be a relay or a patrol ship. If they received our message, they might come. Thien shook his head. Even if they do, they won't make it in time. Leora looked down at the data chip in her hand. Maybe, but if there's even a small chance, isn't it worth hoping for? The council members exchanged uncertain looks. Hope had become a fragile thing, too dangerous to hold on to, yet impossible to let go completely. The arrival high above Velian Prime, space shimmered. A faint ripple appeared near the planet's orbit. Like a wave disturbing calm water, the Dominion sensors picked it up immediately. Commander Vel, an officer called out, we're detecting an unknown warp signature at the edge of the system. Terran turned sharply. Identify it, still scanning. The drive pattern doesn't match any known Dominion ship. Terran frowned. Bring up visuals. The main screen flickered to life. Out of the distortion emerged a ship, smaller than Dominion cruisers but strange and unfamiliar. Its hull was silver gray, lined with angular panels. It moved smoothly, quietly, like a predator gliding through shadows. Origin? Terran demanded. The officer hesitated. Unknown, but the signature resembles Terran design. Terran? Taran repeated. He remembered the word. Human. A race the Dominion had rarely encountered. A species known for unpredictability. Just one ship? He asked. Affirmative. A small carrier. It's broadcasting a low-frequency signal. Patch it through. A voice filled the command bridge. Clear, calm, and confident. This is Captain Alara Dane of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your distress call, Velian Prime. Hold your ground. Help has arrived. First contact down on the planet, Leora and the others watched their screens in disbelief as the transmission echoed through their comms. Did she say, human? Karen asked. Leora's heart raced. Yes, they came, the message repeated, stronger this time. And with it came a sudden spark of energy across the defense grid. People who had nearly given up stopped what they were doing. Soldiers straightened their backs. Civilians looked up at the sky once more. The impossible had happened. Meanwhile, above the atmosphere, Captain Alara Dane studied the planet from her ship's command deck. The situation was worse than she expected. Dominion ships circled the planet like vultures. But Alara's eyes were sharp and determined. She turned to her crew. Scan for open channels. Find any resistance units still active on the surface. We'll need coordination. Her second officer nodded. Yes, ma'am. But we're outnumbered at least 20 to 1. Alara smiled faintly. Then we'll have to be clever. Unseen moves while the Dominion fleet focused on the main orbital sectors, Ilara's team deployed stealth drones into the planet's atmosphere. The small, fast machines mapped the entire battle zone. They detected hidden resistance groups, unguarded supply routes, and weak points in the enemy blockade. Inside her ship, Ilara studied the holographic projection carefully. They've grown overconfident, she said. They think the Velians are finished. That's our advantage. Her communications officer looked at her curiously. Ma'am, are we here to engage them directly? Ilara shook her head. No, not yet. We're here to give these people something far more important than firepower. What's that? Hope. The whisper of change as hours passed. Ilara's small ship began coordinating quiet actions across the planet. They hacked enemy transmissions, spread false signals, and secretly guided Velian resistance fighters to regroup. Drivari soldiers started noticing strange disruptions in their systems. Drones malfunctioned. Patrols went missing. Supply routes failed to connect. Commander Terran Vel frowned as reports flooded in. What is happening out there? Unknown interference, Commander. Our systems are being jammed intermittently. We suspect local sabotage. Sabotage? The Velians don't have the capacity for that anymore. He stared at the screen showing Ilara's ship orbiting peacefully beyond his fleet, A small smile crossed his face, half irritation, half intrigue. Humans, he murmured. So, the stories were true. The flame returns by nightfall. The Velian resistance had begun to rise again. Leora worked closely with Alara's team through a secret channel. She helped them understand local infrastructure, planetary shields, and terrain. In return, Alara's crew sent data packets, maps, and energy cells that reignited the Velian communication network.